everyone. Sorry.
Hello.
Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our International Book Club. Sorry to be a few minutes late, but there's good reason and much to look forward to. So thank you for joining from all over the world. And today we are reviewing an extraordinary book called The Awareness Code. And we have one and possibly both of the amazing writers joining us today. We have a few little technical issues with Australia, and Wayno Linton will be joining us hopefully very soon. And when he joins, I'll introduce him. And here with me in the StreamYard studio is Steve Tappin. Steve, welcome.
Thanks, Harriet. Great to see you. Welcome, everybody.
Great to see you too. And some of you may know Steve, as he has over 1 million followers on social media, as a founder of the CEO Masterclass. He's hosted the BBC series CEO Guru, and he's kind of the CEO coach that everyone wants to be coached by. And Steve and I have known each other about 15, 16 years. And recently him and his partner, Wayno, who we hope will join, wrote this amazing book, The Awareness Code. So Steve, remembering we've got people from all over the globe, tell us in some short bites what the Awareness Code is and why it's so powerful.
Yeah, certainly, Harriet. So first of all, I'll also have some context for Wayno as well. So as you say, my life was always CEOs and transformation, and I met Wayno, and Wayno's life was about human beings and human awareness. And we met about 5 years ago, and what happened was we started to work on human awareness for leaders, and it became clear that there's like a periodic table for the elements, hydrogen, helium, you can see all the elements, but so far no one had mapped out the periodic table for a human being, for human awareness and what goes on within. And that's why we created the Awareness Code.
And I actually have, I follow it religiously. I don't think you can all follow it perfectly on the screen, but it is an amazing set of tables that takes us from sort of lifeless at one level to totally incredible at the next. And when Wayno joins, I'll give a full introduction to Wayno. But so what, Steve? Why is this helpful to anyone? An aspiring leader, a great leader, a leader who wants to improve. How does the application of this really work?
Yeah, it's a great question, Harriet. So I think the way to think of it is, we work with leaders all around the world, and as we created the Awareness Code, we worked in America, Europe, across Asia, China, Africa, and we kept working on it to try and ensure we had the 100 key elements of awareness. But the thing is that a lot of people have high awareness, but Wayno's nice sense is that 99.999% of people have low awareness. Now, they may not be aware of it, or if they are aware of it, they don't know how to work through it. So the goal really is to work for your lower awareness. And then basically what we do is we've got a path to help people become incredible leaders. And I think we can do that on a consistent basis if people are open to being really honest about their low awareness, and they're also dedicated and they have integrity and they want to become incredible, then there's a path that they can follow.
Yeah. And when we announced this particular book, Steve, in the various social media channels, one of the questions that kept coming up was, yeah, well, it's kind of a book, and how do you bring it to life? And when you talked about the sort of path to being consistently highly aware in each of the segments of your life, how does that work? It's not just a book, is it?
Yeah, no, exactly. So the book, I think, is a very deep, profound read. And we created a summary that people found fascinating as a first way in. But also we have an app. So essentially what you can do is imagine you're in a meeting and you're absolutely frustrated in that meeting. You can literally come outside and on your phone, it's like a little friend. And you go in there and you go frustration and you understand the nature of frustration. Then there's a 5-minute video of Wayno going in deep about frustration. And then you've got 10 triggers and you can work out what is it about that meeting that's triggering my frustration. And then the application helps you then work through that to then be above 60 in a higher awareness. So the idea of it is we wanted to make it really real time for people in terms of using their awareness.
That is so succinct. Now, triggers, this is also a question that came up, Steve, before. We live in an age where every other thing I read has a trigger in it, that we seem to be more triggered at this time. How is the book it has been out, what, a year and a half? Is that right?
Just coming up to a year.
Coming up to a year. And when I read it, I thought, wow, this is so much more relevant of our time, because with this vortex of change, you know, health, technology, climate change, deep need for equity, diversity, and inclusion, there appear to be many more triggers that are affecting people's sort of consistency and stability. How did you pick this time to write the book? What's the story of how the book was written, Steve?
Yes, very good question. So, I mean, at one level, it was just somehow Wayno and I meeting at that time in our lives, you know, where I'd had the focus on the external world and CEOs and leaders globally, and he'd had the focus on at the human level. I think there's also a sense that if you look across the world globally, there are we've got some big challenges. You know, we've got wars, we've got political conflicts in many situations. We've got CEOs who are running companies where, you know, on average, 70% of people are stressed, you know, and so I think we've got a situation where we've got a lot of low awareness around the world. And I think what I found fascinating, Harriet, has been speaking to leaders, and a lot of them are sort of saying, wow, we are really at a point in time where I've never seen it like this before. This is a point in time where I need to find my own voice here, and I've got to be able to hold high awareness when I've got all these challenges and all these other people in low awareness. So I think there seems to be quite an important point in time.
Yes. It seems that if ever there was a time to be incredible as a leader with so much change, now is it. And as you talk to leaders and as you begin to help people in these, what everyone's calling the new realities, what are some of give us a couple of examples of things that we know that we're still very hopeful. For those of you thinking, where am I? You're in the our international book club with myself. We're reviewing the awareness code. We have one part of the mighty duet with Steve Tappin and Wayno Linton, hopefully joining us when he can. But give us some examples of how you take the amazing periodic table of awareness and help people at this time of, you know, unrivaled challenge.
Yeah. So what I do, Harriet, is before I meet a CEO leader, I make sure I'm really present and tuned in. So I'm at level 70 as I go in to meet them. And then when I meet them, I just get the CEOs, the leaders to talk, you know, and the sort of areas is around, you know, how's their business going currently, especially given the downturn. What's the future look like for their business? And then thirdly, you know, what's the situation with their executive team or their management team? And then finally back to their own awareness. And what I'm doing is I'm tuning in really very quickly is are they above 60 or below 60 for the conversation? So if they're below 60, you know, they might be a bit despondent, they might be a bit stressed out, they might be a bit controlling in the way that they speak, they might be showing a bit of ego, you know, or some of them could be at the really levels of lifeless. But basically I tune into their level of awareness and then I'll start to talk to them from that level of awareness. I'll just be tuned into it. And then secondly, Harriet, what we could try and do is I think the practical levels is you have conversations around realizing the truth around the business. So asking a leader, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well is your business performing? On a scale of 1 to 10, how good is your exec team? On a scale of 1 to 10, how effective is the culture? And then get them to talk to that, so they're starting to realize the truth of the situation. And then often with the future. Sorry, Harry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Steve, but I think I've just had a couple of inputs on that. So I wanted to real time ask you the questions. We're still having challenges getting Wayno in. The StreamYard team are working with him. So bear with us. But Steve, when you talk about above 60, above 70, give some context to that, because people are really interested, what that means. And are you, above 60 in everything, in a couple of things? Help people understand that matrix that you refer to.
Yeah. So we've created the awareness code, and there are 10 levels of awareness. There are 6 levels below 60 and 4 levels above 60. And then when we're talking about below 60, that is essentially the low awareness tiles. So each level has got 10 tiles. So there's 60 levels of awareness below the red line, and there's 40 levels above the red line. The above the red line would be the ability to step into situations with positive conviction and be fully in. The other open would be to be open, receptive, be able to witness and connect with people. And transforming would be the ability to really have a sense of your highest calling, to work in fellowship, to do some things that would be basically significant and be able to inspire people. And then the highest level would be incredible, which is the ability to really surrender your leadership and be very, very much heart-bursting and extraordinary.
Heart-bursting and extraordinary. For those of you who wondered if they've joined the right call, you have. This is our International Book Club. We are reviewing the Awareness Code by Steve Tappin and Wayno Linton. Wayne is not with us right now, as we're some technical difficulties with Australia that we're working through. But Steve, you were describing when I most rudely interrupted, but I wanted to make sure people stayed with you on the levels. You were describing your interaction with the CEO, and once you've established where you think they are, how do you then, you're a very experienced coach, you've been coaching some of the best CEOs in the world for over 20 years. How do you start to coach without them thinking, clearly I'm already a great CEO, I'm not sure I need any of this?
Yeah, well, I think at the coaching a CEO level, the first conversation is to really go into the truth about how the business operates, like I said. But I think then what I try and do is go into the future. And normally what I'd have is a few views of the future of the business that would be at a similar level of the CEO or more innovative. And just see if the CEO has the opportunity, whether they stick with their own view of the business or whether they're open to exploring a more pioneering or groundbreaking or extraordinary offering for the company. And then what happens is that sort of opens them up, and they potentially get into the 80s on the awareness code, the transforming line. And then what I do is then go in to talk about the exec team. So how's your exec team going? And they always tell a great story, or a third of them are good, a third of them are average, a third of them I'm going to work on. But then what about on a bad day? What about on a really bad day? And what about on the worst day of COVID? How effective were they? And then I start to move them to open the conversation up from not in control, but to be open about the fellowship. And then in the end, then come back to themselves, Harriet. And I think, as you'll have a good sense of this. It's not just your awareness at work; it's your awareness with your family and in your life. You might be different. You might be high on your awareness code in your business, but you might be low with your family. So again, we've got to sort of understand the situations and how your awareness develops. And the idea would be to really work through, honestly, where are they on the awareness code with them?
Yes. It's a fascinating process. And I've had some questions from people about, have I worked at all on this? And I'm going to respond to that. But 2 questions have come through, Steve, for you. And I guess we'd ask Wayno too, but he's still struggling to come in. Is you've done so much in leadership and you're helping others lead better. Who are your role models of leadership? I mean, you've got your very own unique style. And I hope you won't mind me in any way saying, Steve, that when we met again after quite a long time in this April, you were even more amazing and wonderful than I remembered you. And you credited working with Wayno and this process for some of that. But tell us about your role models. People are asking that.
Yeah. So I think my early life, there was the Sir John Harvey Jones, who ran Troubleshooter, who was the troubleshooter on British TV, the first ever apprentice.
Yes.
He was the head of ICI, the global chemical company. And the thing about John is he had great integrity. He had a great personality, and his ability to coach. He'd simplify things into it's just A, B, or C, or just choose D and E. So he was very, very good. And then, I felt people like Branson were amazing, and I saw some of the creativity of Steve Jobs. But and then what I felt is working with Wayno was the big step change for me. And
Yes.
Wayno comes from my point of view, from beyond incredible. And he was the first leader in the world that I'd seen operate from beyond incredible. And then it really changed my view. And then I realized actually there aren't really hardly any Fortune 500 CEOs that are beyond incredible that I'm aware of. So wow, isn't this amazing? What an amazing possibility this is. And I think also I realized then that many leaders are sort of up to 60 on the awareness code. They're positive, they've got conviction and fully in, but they also grapple with ego or control issues or stress. So I think the job of work is to help people really live the life above 60 on the awareness code. And I think there's an exciting opportunity to create beyond incredible leaders who really can change the world.
Totally. So do you think, Steve, that this question has come in, should every business have people who have a strong background in psychology, the importance of, oh, wow, we have Wayno. Wayno, you're on mute. So after the, let's take Wayno off mute. Wayno, welcome. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Wayno. Let me just, we've all been waiting in great suspense, but this is perfect. So let me just share, Steve's been busily talking. Wayno, thank you for your patience and your good humor through those technology issues. As Steve has already said, for those of you just joining, we are reviewing the awareness code in our international book club. We've been listening to the CEO's coach of coaches, Steve Tappin. And just joining us is Wayno, who's a global psychotherapist. He specializes, as Steve says, in training and developing current and future leaders to really understand their full potential. He's worked all over the world, entirely global, and the coming together of Steve and Wayno is what created the awareness code. So Wayno, one of the questions that people have wanted to ask you and Steve's already answered, is now you're dealing with, leaders, everyday CEOs, who have been your role models for your work?
Well, hello, Harriet and Steve and everyone watching. Hopefully we can shed a little bit of light on some of the tricky questions that Harriet's got lined up for us. Role models for leadership. I find it difficult to actually narrow down on any one particular person. I feel that I have collected throughout my life, I've traveled around the world half a dozen times searching for leaders that are inspiring and uplifting and have put in a lot of effort and devotion, dedication to their various fields. So I'm not going to name any one particular person because there are just so many that have inspired me or helped me understand something about the human condition that has led to the awareness code. So it's a plethora of enormous talent out there that I'd like to celebrate rather than any one or two particular people.
That tells so much about you, Wayno. And the question that we were just answering that had come in was, when you look at businesses, should every business have people who have a strong background in psychology and human behavior? Do you think this is becoming more important in the construct of businesses and their effectiveness in this sort of huge void of leadership that Steve and I were discussing earlier?
I feel across the board, not just in businesses, but in families and in education systems, in hospitals, the whole range of human endeavour and passion and assisting each other. There is an increasing requirement for people to consider how they are fronting up, how the decisions they're making in the boardroom or in just normal day-to-day life is impacting not just their clients, but their colleagues, themselves. And so that's part of why we put the awareness code together. We're looking at helping people to understand and establish a deeper connection to themselves and other people by as many psychological tools as can be garnered. And you can see in the awareness code, we've got 100 different types, and each one of those has its own biology. It's got its own way of behaving. It's got its own way of thinking and emoting. And we strongly suggest that in the workplace, in the home life, a little bit more psychology is going to go a long way to moving towards the higher tiles.
That's fantastic. Steve, do you have a thought? We've got a couple more questions pinging in.
Yeah, no, I think let's go to the questions. Let's work through the questions, Harriet.
Okay, well, one of the questions, we've had an input here from the mighty Julia saying unique individuals who find their space don't have role models. Well, that's me told. So Steve, you had them, Wayno didn't. So I guess the uniqueness and the specialty, that's feedback for us. So one of the questions that's just come in was, and people have obviously read some of the material we put out. How did you select, the two of you, the 30,000 people who interacted in some way for you to create the amazing awareness code? So how did this extraordinary number and quality of individuals come together?
Steve, do you want?
But do you want to talk about you personally, Wayno, first of all, the people, and then I'll...
Yeah. Okay, so from to the person who put forward that question and anyone else interested, I started to witness from a very early age. I had a fascination about watching people behave, and I just kept asking for more context as what's happening for you at a deeper level? What's going on for you to react that way? And I witnessed all through my university. I think I witnessed more than I studied, but somehow I got through. And then when I was with clients, again, every time that I had a private session with a client, for me, it was an opportunity, yes, to assist them and to help them and to support them and nurture them, but also to witness any nuance, any new information, any change, shift in them. And you can imagine with the intensity that I have doing that a few thousand times, 10,000 times, 20,000 times, after 35,000 hours of doing that, I started to accumulate some deeper understanding, almost Harriet, intuitively sensing what might come next, because if you watch something that many times, you get a feel of, I know the script now for each of the tiles. I basically feel like what they're about to say is already predetermined, because in each tile you're either entrapped or you're empowered, and you can almost forecast what's about to happen. So that's what happened for me, an extensive amount of witnessing, Steve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we've got a little bit of wobble bobble on Wayno's line. So sorry if people have got that intensified. I could still hear you perfectly, Wayno, but just in case others are thinking it's their own set, it isn't. So Steve, your thought on the 30,000 people, and then we've had two amazing questions that I want to get in front of you as well. So tell us your view. We're on the Awareness Code, International Book Club, Wayno and Steve. Steve?
Yeah. So mine was, my highest calling sort of came to me at 23, which was to work with CEOs to transform companies. And in my 20s, I made it a goal to meet a CEO ideally every day if I could. So I just built my knowledge up of CEOs and did that around the world. There was a time, like when I was in China from 2006 to 2018, where I'd meet all the Chinese CEOs, or I'd meet all the Thai CEOs, or I'd meet the Australian CEOs. So I tried to go around the world and meet as many of those CEOs as I could. And that really formed the picture. And then, as you know, Harriet, when we worked on BBC CEO Guru, that gave me access to more global CEOs. So it's really that and 30 years of client work, sort of helped me build sort of over 25,000 one-to-ones and group sessions.
This is amazing. The power of all that witnessing, the power of all of those interactions. A question that came up when we posted about this, and it's come up 2 or 3 times already, from people saying, we seem to be experiencing unbelievable leadership crisis in today's politics. I don't think they're referring just to the UK or Australia, but this leadership void you were discussing, do you have any comments as it pertains to, countries, not just businesses?
Steve?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So at one level, obviously there are cultural differences, but at the same time, we're all universally human beings. So obviously, then we struggle with low awareness and high awareness, and then those individuals come together in a cabinet that is a combination of high and low awareness, and then they make decisions that are a combination of high and low awareness. So I think, I think we've been focused really on the next generation of political leaders, trying to help them really come from high awareness to build futures for not just this for future generations.
Yeah, that's a beautiful picture you create in our mind. People coming together with high awareness, low awareness. Wayno, do you have advice? I mean, you listen, you witness, but then you coach, you advise, you help. If you could give a kernel of advice to some of the leaders who are experiencing massive challenge in their countries. Our own in the UK has just suffered enormous loss, as you know, being a kingdom and losing a queen. And there's much despondency around the country, as Steve knows. But your view on countrywide leadership and advice you'd give?
Okay, so I would say that the awareness code is a map of human consciousness that doesn't really have opinions or beliefs about different countries. It doesn't invest in such matters. It's about the human condition. So we don't do comparisons or attempt to break it down in that way. All we do is whenever we have events around the world, regardless of the continent or the country, the people we have in front of us, we apply the knowledge that we've garnered from witnessing extensively what each tile does. So that if I've got someone in front of me and they are in the despondent area, and it doesn't matter from what country, let's say that they are wounded or they are disconnected from their exec team or from what's going on in the environment, we would look at that. And when you're in anywhere between 10 and 19 on the awareness code, when you're down the second bottom layer, it's a tough place. Yes. It's got a limited ability to have a bigger context, a bigger picture. It narrows down to the dots to survive. And so it concentrates on generally one or two of the major things to try and get through. And so we would step in there and attempt to help the person to have a bigger picture, an idea of how to move away from being narrowed down to seeing the situation as a problem and take them perhaps towards realizing truth, the 60s, which is always a breakthrough type of situation or circumstance, and see what is it that's holding them back from realizing a bigger truth that's going to have some power in it to propel the situation forward, to open up better dialogue, to improve the connection. So we'd have to look at what's going on for you to be so disconnected or wounded. We might have to peel back a few layers, no matter what country we're in, and dig a bit deeper. Every problem we see is like an onion, and it has layers. And so bit by bit, we peel it back, we understand more, and there's an increased opportunity for the situation to move towards 60. I see what I've been missing, and that's irrespective of the country.
Yes, thank you, Wayno. Steve, did you have a comment on that or anything you'd add? I have more questions, so you can have a new fresh one if you'd like.
I'll go fresh one, please.
A fresh one. So one of the questions that I guess from someone who's read some of the book or all of the book, and it's a question we always ask at our book clubs. If you had to summarize, or what would they get from reading the awareness code? Why should they read the awareness code? What makes it different? I think someone was saying that there were 942 leadership coaching self-help books published around the world in the last sort of couple of months. What's special and different about this one, above and beyond us talking about it here today? Steve.
Okay. I can kick. Like Steve, or go first.
Yeah. No, go for it, Wayno. You go.
So Harriet, I'm feeling that as a generalization, people have some idea of how they're operating because they get some feedback from their colleagues or from their partner or from their children, or as to how genuinely we're going. But it's a very general form, and it's sort of hit and miss, and there's no sort of structure to it. You're doing well, you're not doing well, you're being too aggressive, you're not listening enough, I'm not being validated here. Now, that's a mishmash and a whirlwind of psychology. So when you start to read the book, it starts to sort out from the worst sort of feelings and how you might project that into the room. Oh, this is not going to work. I'm a burden to everyone. I'm embarrassing. That very disempowered state, maybe even depression, high anxiety, up to the most exhilarating, extraordinary contributor who's on their game, who's fully in, who's inspiring, and they may not know exactly why or how, And the journey to get from the lower levels to the higher levels is what the book's all about. And so to read, I do have some of that. And then to ask family or colleagues, look at this book, which 3 or 4 tiles do you feel that I operate from? And then you get specific feedback if you're up for it, if you've got the courage to face into that. And then you can ask, really? You think I'm self-centered at 53? I'm egotistical? Can you tell me more about that? I didn't think that's the way I'm coming across. And so it gets specific, that you start to understand how people see you, and you can go, I thought I was adventurous and collaborative. Well, actually, you're a bit competitive and scheming. So, okay, that gives me a chance to look at it. Or I go straight to 55, defensive, and I push it all away, and I don't want to believe it. And then someone who's read the book can go, I see what you do. That's your pattern. Maybe there's a chance to talk about it. And so it depends how much ego's happening, or how much breaking through in the above 60. And all of that, you can start to feel it as you read the book. So we wrote it with a sense of, find out if you're in some lower tiles, own it, look at it, work with it, don't be afraid of it. That's okay. And all of the higher tiles are inside of you, waiting to go. You just have to feel back.
That is so, sorry to interrupt there, Wayno. That is so true, as I myself did this with my husband, and he shared where he thought I was operating in some of the lower tiles. So it does take courage, but it's an amazing journey that the book can start you on. Now, Steve, could you summarize why this book? Many have said it's not just the book, it's a whole process. But why do you think this book can help? Wayno's given such rich texture there. But what's your thought as the business person and the CEO coach?
Yeah. So given a macro picture early on in the session today, but in my sense, it's a bit like you said, Harriet, there's something like 57,000 leadership books there. And yet I bump into, just last few months, groups of female leaders who've done all sorts of development. Yeah, they've done development with mind programming, the developments with all sorts of different aspects, but they're all still searching for a deeper meaning. Yet they're all still feel unfulfilled. They don't feel they have a purpose. They don't feel they have a way forward. So I feel that what's happened is there's a bit of a void. And, there's been some great books in the past, like Good to Great, helping people move towards great. And we wanted to give people the opportunity to move towards incredible or beyond incredible. And we wanted to then give them a practical way of being able to do it. So not just talking about it, from ego, but doing the practical work to allow somebody to become an incredible leader or beyond incredible. And at the beyond incredible leader, that's the aspects of doing something that would be profound in the world. Something that could unite communities and countries. Something that would do things that some people would see as doing the impossible or breathtaking. And I think the last few months we just started to have conversations with CEOs and leaders about, we might be bold, but could we be breathtaking? What could that mean? And isn't that exciting? Gosh, imagine if we run a company like that. So I think we're just starting to see the signs of an opening. And I think this is so exciting for the people now to be able to go on a path to becoming incredible. But obviously there's a lot of work, as Wayno and Harriet, there's a lot of work to be done every day on that journey.
Absolutely. And one of the things that's come up in different forms from actually different continents in the questions is about, so I read the book and I start to, go along on my journey. What sort of things do people do differently? What sort of techniques? What vista does this open as we begin to wrap up this International Book Club LinkedIn Live on the awareness code? Just share what people could expect as they embrace with courage some of this.
Sure. So we start the book looking at the ego way of living in the world below 60. And that's essentially all about me and what I want and what I think I should have. And as a child, that's a very accepted and normal way of being in the world. You're finding out who you are and what you like and what you don't like, and you're setting boundaries depending on the nature of your home life and if you're allowed to or not. So you get this sense of wanting, which gives me a good feeling, pleasurable feeling. And when I don't get what I want, I have a displeasurable feeling, and I try and avoid that. Okay, and so there's yo-yo between pleasure and displeasure, and so the book starts to identify for each of these ways of behaving or being the entrapments that we get stuck in that we don't even know is operating in our inner voice or in our world. And it brings it to life. It suggests for each tile 3, 4, 5 or more entrapments, and can you learn to catch them? Now that's a tricky thing, and if you can, what is an alternative way of thinking, or you're changing your story so that above 60 it turns into what we've named a revelation, a powerful way of seeing exactly the same thing. So an event will happen, and the entrapment tiles will see it as negative, as not good, as I'm not getting what I want. But above 60 will see it as a challenge. It'll see it as a way to grow. It'll wonder, how can I be empowered with this when normally I've been a victim? And so there's this constant possibility of reflection. And we suggest at the end of every day, whichever tile you've chosen to work on, one of the lower tiles, look back through the day and how did you go? Now, if you notice that you didn't improve, in fact you slipped and you didn't realize, instead of beating yourself up and going into the lower tiles, wonder, how could I do that better tomorrow? Now, it seems simple, but when you take that into your night dreams, there's a deep wisdom mind that attempts to find answers to put that into your dreams. And you can wake up not really knowing how you're going to do it differently, but then you get out there and you get into the face of the problem or the situation, and all of a sudden, it might be a little bit of deja vu, but you're feeling, hey, I'm more empowered here. I handle that really well. So there's like one little example. Yeah,
it's brilliant,
Steve,
and it works. Wayno, I can certainly attest to that. Steve, from you, as we wrap up on why the awareness code, of all those self-help books, of all the books that help us become the very best version of ourselves we can every single day across all bizarre situations, with our triggers, with our entrapments, all of these important things to understand. Why do you think, or what do you think people will be able to do differently and better having read the book or rereading the book and beginning this journey? Why is it such a great book?
Yeah. First of all, in reading the book, some of the sports people can't access the book. They have to read it a few times. So the first thing would be to read the book first time, then read it from a deeper place, maybe 2 or 3 times to get the most value. In terms of what would happen is, I think you'll get a realization and go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this is my awareness. For the first time in your life, you'll be able to spot your awareness in yourself and in your family and in some of your colleagues. And then what you'll start to be able to do is to go, is as you work through that, using the app and also the Awareness Code Global Training Centre work that Wayno does, as you do that, you'll start to then get a sense of being positive and conviction and fully in and everything. Then open yourself up to lots of possibilities in terms of being receptive and be able to connect with people at a much deeper level. And then I think you'll get some wows. And then I think soon you'll start to get a sense of your highest calling as your awareness goes up. And then you'll start to bring a new fellowship of people around you, together with your most loyal people. And then I think you'll start to get a sense of incredible. And then from that place, you'll do heart-bursting things. Your heart will burst out. And you'll do some things that are absolutely extraordinary. And there may even be moments of grace for some people. And then for a small number, the opportunity to become beyond incredible in this lifetime.
I so love that phrase, heart bursting. I think my desire to heart burst on many levels is very real. So we're going to wrap up now. I really want to thank Steve Tappin and Wayno Linton for their amazing book. It really is a great read, and it's a book. And from the book, some of the techniques, achieving mastery within them, and really, if you want to be an even better version of yourself, then it's worth a read. So big thank you. Wayno, I'm so sorry that you had challenges. It's so late in Australia, but it made such a difference you could join. So thank you so much. And Steve, marvelous to hear from you too. We will post this, the whole interview live, picking out some of the key points, but a very big thank you to Wayno and to Steve.
Yes, enjoyed it immensely, Harriet. Thanks for the
Thanks
offer.
very much. Thanks, Harriet. Thanks for the questions and your time. See you soon.
Pleasure.
See you later, everybody.